I'm going to the community meetings and the city meetings and all that, talking to people. And the main reason why people are so frustrated is they don't feel like they have a voice, and that their issues aren't looked at to try and get some solution that gives them comfort. Because I mean, in our society, isn't that what we're supposed to do, is work together so that we make our society better?
Have you ever wondered what it takes to successfully raise money? I have worked with hundreds of capital campaigns across dozens of industries, and I'm here to share with you proven methods for raising money in record time and at the lowest cost, while also obtaining capital at the lowest price. My name is Karl Dakin, and welcome to Motivated Money. So good day. This is Karl Dakin with Motivated Money. We are here to talk about raising capital, and we're going to talk about the Motivated Money approach to raising capital, where we focus upon investor candidates who are most likely to invest. And all this contributes to a better, higher quality capital campaign, because you can achieve your capital goals and do it in a shorter period of time at lower cost, and possibly even reduce the cost of money that you're going to use for your project. With me today, I have as my guest, Pete Tovani with Engineered Tools and Technologies. Hey, Pete, how you doing?
Pretty good, Karl. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'm happy to have Pete on the show today. And the topic that I want to talk with Pete about, and for all of you who are listening to this podcast, is that when you get ready to do a capital campaign, one of the first things you have to do before you can even create your plan or structure your deal is you have to figure out exactly what kind of capital resources you're going to need. It doesn't make any sense to raise a particular type of capital or a particular amount of capital if it's too small or the wrong kind, wrong time. And so what we have here with the project that Pete's working on, which we call the Sunnyside District, is a massive project. It's one that stretches the imagination more than most people can handle, but it still at the same time is a common issue, which is how do we revitalize, how do we rebuild, redevelop an existing inner city neighborhood in a large community like Denver? And how do we do that so we're not merely catching up with the Joneses, but we're actually going to advance this neighborhood to bring it to a higher level, a higher quality of life? We're going to bring it to a net zero environmental impact. And while we're doing this, unlike a lot of other redevelopment projects that we've seen across the United States, we don't want to push everybody who lives in the neighborhood out of the neighborhood and replace them with a whole new set of people, because that happens to be a little bit more profitable and not really showing a lot of care or concern for everybody who already lives and exists in this neighborhood, some of them over multiple generations. So with that, the Motivated Money approach, we're going to be talking about what kind of capital is necessary. Now, most people think of capital only as cash, but in fact, the term capital defined in the dictionary is it's any form of asset you can use to operate your business. So we're talking about people, we're talking about equipment, facilities, know-how, intellectual property. It can be networks and contacts. And all these are things that are commonly used in a business and day-to-day operation. And in a project of the mega scale, the overwhelming scale of this particular project, we're going to use all these and several variations of each of these in order to make this project become the reality that we hope it will become. So, Pete, if you would, I'm going to ask you to talk about the Sunnyside District. I'm going to throw up some slides for those who are watching this on the video element. But most of our listeners are listening in by ear, and so you talk, and I'll deal with the slides, and I'll jump in with questions, and then we'll get into the thick of things.
What's going on is the Sunnyside Innovation District that we're trying to create is the old Standard Fence location. My father-in-law moved Standard Lumber and Hardware from 10th and Federal in the early 60s to this location so he could put in rail spurs so that he could buy material in quantity to have an edge on his competitors. And because of that, it's an old industrial area. And the city and county of Denver has in Blueprint Denver 2040, they have designated this area where they want to change it into a community center. I'm lucky enough to be friends with John Gagnon, the architect who designed the DIA terminal. And he and I have been working together to try and resolve the problem of what does a net zero community look like? And using different transit orientated stations throughout Denver that have been built over the last decade or so or more, we've used those as different examples of what could be done. Since we're not large developers, we're just throwing out concepts. But now, the city in Denver, like I said, in Blueprint 2040, they have designated this area as a community center. And with that, they have a plan called the Near Northwest Plan, and they have a lot of items on their wish list for what they'd like to do. And this piece of property just happens to be the keystone to be able to hook and connect the neighborhoods like the city and county of Denver would like to see happen for their overall plan of what will be built in 25 years. And so what John and I are doing is we're waiting for what the city and county of Denver wants to propose in this area for building heights and all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to start doing the Sunnyside master plan, where we work on keeping different the existing businesses in place and enhancing their location and just upgrading everything. And one of the other things that we want to do is we want to include in the purple on this map is called Quig Newton Homes. It's low income housing. And so what we want to do is we want to be able to transform that neighborhood at Dawn Foods, which is just to the east of Quig Newton and to the south of the beige area. We would like to put in a grocery store because this is a food desert. There's a lot of things that need to happen in this area because it is a neighborhood. Since it is one of the oldest in Denver, it has been overlooked. The site to the east of the railroad tracks, where it says the former Denver Post site, that is going to be the Fox Park site. And go to foxpark.com and look at the grand plans that they have. They really have a really good concept that they would like to build out there. And what's great about that is they need to buy part of our property so that they can build a bridge, a pedestrian, automobile, and bicycle bridge over to connect the neighborhoods. And that's part of what the city and county of Denver wants to do, is have this property connect all the neighborhoods. And then by going under I-70, we can create a corridor for Inca. So Inca is a very nice pedestrian bicycle path all the way up into Chaffee Park. And we can expand off just to the south of our property is Mile High Comics. It's been there forever. And 46th is just right to the south of that and goes to the west. And what we would like to do there is we would like to make that a very canopied, nice walking street, because once it goes west of Federal, it will connect with the lakes that are over there. And then also connect with the neighborhoods that are to the west of Federal. So that's just kind of an overall plan. But how the Innovation District started was I'm an inventor. I have my name on 8 patents as inventor or co-inventor over the last 4 decades. And we've been working on an anaerobic digester and nested nozzle mixer. And we had that prototype at the Boulder wastewater facility from September of 2018 to the end of April of 2022. And we've moved it to this site. And we're going to use that as the basis for our innovation district. Not only are we going to be able to turn food waste into energy, we're also going to be able to clean water. And those are the next experiments that we're going to do once we get everything connected up.
So, Pete, when we were first introduced, now it seems like it may have been in the prior century, but I'm not quite sure if it's that long ago. You had a concept that you were talking about called the Energy Oasis. And can you give me a brief description of what that concept's all about?
It's basically a net zero community where we use active and passive solar architectural elements and smart design so that we create a building that reduces its need for fossil fuels, because we need to be able to come up with net zero systems and how we integrate those systems together so that we can reduce our need for the use of fossil fuels.
And at that time, one of the things you're working on and you're continuing to work on today, you called it the nested nozzle, but this is essentially a device that can take wastewater, dirty water, and clean it up, facilitate converting it into new biomaterials or into methane as an energy source. and essentially, you're taking the community off grid. It doesn't have to be connected to a central wastewater system. It doesn't have to pump all the water all the way out and pump the sewage all the way back to a centralized processing facility. And it basically allows the community to stand on its own merits without a dependency upon the centralized systems. And that gives it a lot more flexibility, and it gives it ability to control cost and do. There's so many different benefits that come out of this. We could spend all day talking about that. But I'm gonna stop the slide deck here for those who are watching and for those who are listening. And Pete, this is such a huge project. You're going to talk about taking 1.5 square miles of an old inner city industrialized area with a lot of low income housing. And you're saying, hey, I want to upgrade all this. And I don't just simply want to, do it one way. I want to make it like the city of the future. I want to use modern technologies. I want to make it better than a lot of people think about. And so if I were to come to you today and say, Pete, you're getting ready to start planning your capital campaign, and I offered you a check, how much money would you need in order to make this whole thing happen?
I couldn't give you that answer. The reason is because I haven't done that calculation, because I'm doing a lot of the legwork that is needed to get people to buy into this project. I'm talking with the business owners, property owners, the community, and all that, just to see if everyone's is on board to try and give this project a try.
Well, and that's an interesting issue that you put on the table. I've seen a lot of developers come in and basically start doing an assemblage, buying up all the property. They're not talking to the people who live there. They're not even talking to the businesses who are operating there. Their intent is basically to do a scrape and rebuild, and the community that exists there today is going to disappear. So I appreciate your description of the fact that you're in a interactive feedback loop right now, looking for information from the community about the community to help the community.
Yes, I am. That's part of what an innovation district is. It's where you work with academia, business, and government to enhance the neighborhood of where the community is. And that's what we're trying to do.
And so to some degree, part of the capital that you need is in the form of community buy-in. It's acceptance of a concept to make a change, and that's very difficult for a lot of communities, particularly the people already may feel disenfranchised. They don't feel like they have a stakeholder in the community. So what are you trying to do to get that kind of information?
I'm going to the community meetings and the city meetings and all that, talking to people. And the main reason why people are so frustrated is they don't feel like they have a voice, and that their issues aren't looked at, and to try and get some solution that gives them comfort. Because I mean, in our society, isn't that what we're supposed to do, is work together so that we make our society better? I mean, that's what the Norman Rockwell Americana I grew up in Boulder was based on, was that stuff. And, I'll admit that I'm a tree hugger from Boulder. That's the reason why I'm trying to do what I'm doing, is because of, that positive influence and keeping Mother Nature. And if we work together, figure out how we can build a community that benefits all the people that live in that community. I mean, one of the things that we want to put into the Sunnyside Innovation District is a place for daycare. And also with daycare, we want to be able to have engaged kids from daycare on, so that they're interested in reading and writing, and, just find their interests so that we can keep them engaged, so they can figure out what they want to do, so that they can get a skill, i.e. a job, and be a productive part of the community.
Well, it's interesting as you describe what you're doing in gathering information from the community and listening to all the different voices in the community. This parallels one of the primary tenets of the motivated money approach to raising capital, where we try to focus on stakeholders. We try to determine who's going to benefit from the success of your organization, of your project, or whatever it is you're doing, because these are the kind of people who may be most motivated to invest in your project. And right now, you are already talking to the stakeholders. You're talking to the businesses. You're talking to the residents in the community. You're talking to the city itself, organizations that are there to advance the community. And so these parallels I find valuable, because at the point in time where you start structuring out deals for the capital you are going to require, the money it's going to take to get things rolling, you have already identified and gone through a lot of the first stages of the motivated money approach by trying to figure out who all the stakeholders are.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's the reason why I have my name on patents, is because I talked to the person or the company that wanted us to invent something for them. And they told me what they wanted it, and then we figured out how to put it in place. So, and that's what, I mean, that's just the whole part of the design and planning. And one thing that I really found is, people are so disenfranchised because they think that they're throwaway people. We just, got to keep consider all the people that are going to be using that area. It's not just for the investor and how much money they're going to make. I mean, as a former weapons designer, I don't design weapons because killing people on a massive scale is a huge waste of time. And that's the reason why I focus my talents and abilities on trying to do something positive that gives people a hand up, not just a handout.
So, Pete, going forward, you're now collecting information. You're determining what the community would like to see. What do you see are the next steps to help the community better understand your vision, and to continue to gather information as you start framing out a business or a whole host of businesses that will be involved in this redevelopment project?
Well, there's some technologies that don't even exist yet to help implement the net zero integration of all these systems for communities that serves the majority of the people. So I see that as uh, a new skill set that we need to be able to for people to understand so that they can learn, so that they can provide that skill to make this a reality. Because all I'm doing, I'm just putting pieces of the puzzle together,
So
and it's just
let's break that down a little bit, Pete. So you've got technology that's available off the shelf today that can help move towards net zero. We know there's lots that's in the pipeline that's being developed and will become available over the next few years. And you are talking about developing a community that may take 10, 15, 20 years to implement your vision. And you're trying to kind of get the two lines to converge between when you're ready to do the development and when the technology is available for you to implement. What are you thinking about to attract in these technologies? Do you have some ideas on how to basically put a banner up and get all these technologies that might contribute to the net zero community to be aware of you and what you're trying to do?
well, right now I'm not trying. I'm not really trying to get anyone aware of anything, just because I've just had my head buried in the garage with the rest of my team, so that we could figure out this complex problem. That's where we are right now. It's just what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get all the Denver companies that do the green technologies, and I'm talking with them on their systems and how their system can be implemented into the Sunnyside Innovation District right now. And so I'm getting bids and all that kind of stuff for all the different aspects of that, to see how much it costs, because I believe everybody's from Missouri and you got to show them how to do stuff. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this, is to show them.
So you mentioned earlier that you're working on some designs or drawings, which will help people visualize what it is you have in mind. What's your timeline on that?
The city and county of Denver will have their direction by the beginning of the spring of 2023. And then that's when John and I will have what their direction is. And then we'll design our Sunnyside master plan off of that.
So if somebody's listening to the podcast today and they're getting excited about the whole concept of revitalizing an entire inner city district with net zero technology, how could they reach out to you? How could they volunteer to help? What kind of help could you take today?
Just give me a call and we'll talk, and we'll figure out what your abilities and strengths are. And I would love the help.
Well, that speaks to another issue of raising capital. It's, I'll say, an unfortunate tendency of entrepreneurs to try to do everything themselves. And that's whether they know what they need to know or they don't know. They have the skill or experience to do it. And, I recommend and advise entrepreneurs who are moving their business forward, and particularly when they're getting ready to raise capital, that they should look about building a team or an army of armies, because in some degree, everybody who agrees to work with you is a form of investment, because they're sharing their time and ideas with you. At the same time, when they say they want to work with you, it means that they're endorsing the project, the vision, you as a person, the integrity you have in being the cheerleader or champion for this particular project. And to other people who don't know you, who haven't heard about the idea, the fact that you have 10 or 20 or maybe 100 people by the end of next year who are all trying to work on this project is its own stamp of approval. And it will make it much, much easier for you to tell your story and to gain credibility with people who don't know you. And at the same time, every person who becomes part of this group that you are putting together, they have their own networks. They have their own access to different investors, different stakeholders, different people who may be able to help the project. And so it's kind of a geometric progression that the more people involved, the more people you have access to, the more capital you have access to, and getting the access to the particular type of capital you need, when and how you need it, it just becomes easier. So going further down the same path, you're going to respond to the city. You're going to put some visualization out there. You're talking to different people. What would you consider your biggest challenge right now in moving forward, where you have this grand vision and you're working hard to kind of get your arms around it?
Well, the most difficult part is to explain to people what I'm trying to do, because we're not able to do the Vulcan mind meld so that they understand all the details of what is up in this crazy head of mine. But that's the hardest part of it right now, is to be able to communicate, because I go back and forth between being on the ground to 100,000 feet and then back. I do that quite a bit, and I lose people really quick. And I also do too much information on like a fire hose at times. And so, and because I'm a little intense, so I kind of scare people. But with that said, I know what I know. There's a lot of things I don't know, and when I don't know them, that's when I go search out experts. The reason why we met is because you have a skill set that I don't have, and I appreciate you working with me so that you bring your skills to the team.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks, Pete. But again, you're making a very powerful statement here that for you to succeed, you have to be able to tell your story in words that your audience, your listeners, your investor candidates can understand. And again, not every entrepreneur was blessed with oratorical skills where they could explain anything to anybody. And so, yeah, some of us are very bad on days. And that's where part of your team building says, well, if this isn't your skill, maybe you need to get somebody on your team who's a storyteller. They don't have to be a salesperson. They don't have to be a public speaker necessarily, but somebody who does a good job of translating, because your story has to change to every person you're talking to. If you're talking to a mother with 2 kids who's working a low-income job, you're going to tell her one story. It's the same story, but she's going to have to hear it differently than the guy who's been running a tent company for 25 years, or a city councilman who doesn't quite understand city planning or some of the technicalities of infrastructure redevelopment. So it's a big challenge. The bigger the project, the more complex it is, the more storytelling and the more work that has to go into storytelling. So we're going to call it a day here. So thank you, Pete, for being with us today.
Thank you, Karl.
Everybody is listening. I think you can see, here we have an entrepreneur with a grand vision who's working to solve problems that basically are common to all major cities across the United States, and one that is bringing I'll call it a fresh air, fresh look of equality and social justice and environmental to the equation. And it's not all about dollars. So by that definition, that means that this isn't going to be attractive to investors who have a single focus in life, which is making more money on their money. you're probably going to have to talk to investor candidates who we call social or impact investors, who are looking to advance the community, social causes, and things of that nature, because all these things that are taking place are things that they care about, and that's the reason why they make their investment decisions. For those of you who enjoyed today's podcast, I invite you to come back to all the series in the futures. We have a whole series of entrepreneurs like Pete who are going to be on the show in the future talking about their capital campaigns. We have met a number of subject matter experts and capital sources and business support program experts who we're now penciling into the calendar in the future. So there'll be a lot more information like that coming down the pike. All these podcasts are now available both in audio and visual on the internet. If you look up Motivated Money Podcast, you'll be able to find one or more of these sources where you can listen to or watch this particular podcast and all the others in the series. If you'd like to learn more about raising money through the Motivated Money Podcast, then we have a boot camp that will be starting in a couple of weeks called the Motivated Money Boot Camp. And you can learn more about that by going to Motivated Money. That's motivated.money. And there'll be more information on the boot camp and the educational program coming up. If there was a term we used about raising capital today, and occasionally we default to slang and shorthand because that's the way we are, you can go to the Entrepreneur Coach, and you will be able to have that word defined for you. So you can go entrepreneurcoach.pro, put in the term that you would like to have defined. And the Entrepreneur Coach is an online AI, artificial intelligence that I've developed with Knowledge Avatars. And it's there as a 24/7 solution to answering your questions on entrepreneurship. So that pretty much covers the basis for today. Pete, thank you very much again for being our guest. And thank you to our listeners and viewers of this podcast. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you for listening in to Motivated Money. If you like this or any other episodes, make sure to leave a rating and review the show. We love to hear your feedback and want to make this the best possible show for you. Also, if you like this episode, make sure you share it with someone you know who is seeking to raise capital. They will appreciate learning what you now know about raising funding. I'll see you on the next episode of Motivated Money.